Let me tell you about the largest cash robbery in American history, at least at the time. It was a crime so audacious, so legendary, it became the stuff of Hollywood movies. But you know the real story? The one that happened after the crime went down? It is way, way more insane than anything you've ever seen on screen.
So picture this. It's a cold December night in 1978. A mafia crew walks out of JFK Airport with nearly $6 million in untraceable cash and jewels. Now, in today's money, that is a staggering $30 million. It was supposed to be the perfect score, right? Well, not exactly.
See that amazing victory? It pretty much immediately turned into a death sentence. That huge pile of cash didn't buy anyone freedom. Oh no, it bought paranoia, it bought greed, and it bought a trail of bodies that led right back to the very guys who stole it.
To really understand this heist, you gotta understand the crew. And right at the heart of it all were three guys from the Lucchese Crime Family. Yeah, the very same men whose lives inspired that classic movie, Goodfellas.
The mastermind, the guy running the whole show, was Jimmy Burke. He was a legend, a deeply feared mob associate, a planner, a powerhouse, and a stone-cold killer. But, and this is key, because he wasn't 100% Italian, he could never be a made man. He was always going to be an outsider, and that permanent chip on his shoulder, it made him one of the most dangerous men in New York City. And here's the really twisted part. They called him Jimmy the Gent. Why? Because the guy was famous for handing out $50 bills to everyone. He was charming, he was generous, and he was also a brutal murderer who'd been killing for the mob since he was just a teenager. The perfect, terrifying contradiction.
Now, Burke's top guy, his protege, was Tommy DeSimone, and he was the crew's mad dog. You might remember the movie character based on him, but let me tell you, the real guy was so much worse. His violence was explosive, totally unpredictable, absolutely terrifying. The madman wasn't just some nickname, it was a warning. And then you've got Henry Hill, the hustler. Now here is a crucial detail, so don't forget it. He did not actually take part in the heist itself. Nope, he was busy running his own massive cocaine trafficking business, all behind the backs of the mob bosses. And that decision, as you're about to see, is the thing that ends up saving his life.
So, how in the world did this crew pull it off? This was no smash and grab. This was a precision operation, literally years in the making. And it was only possible because they had a man on the inside.
The entire plan was basically gift-wrapped and handed to them. There was an airport cargo worker, Louis Werner, who was just drowning in gambling debts he owed to the mob. So, to save his own skin, he offers them the perfect score, a meticulously detailed plan to rob the Lufthansa vault. A plan he'd actually stolen from a coworker who had spent years studying its weaknesses. And just look at the kind of security they were up against. This was not a simple lock. To get into this valuable room, you needed two people to turn two different keys in two different locks at the exact same time. Then you had to close that first door before you could even open the second inner door. Make one tiny mistake, a silent alarm goes straight to the airport police. I mean, it was supposed to be completely foolproof. But the crew's inside guy knew the system's one fatal flaw. It wasn't the locks, it wasn't the alarms, it was bureaucracy. So the real question became this: how do you get millions and millions of dollars to just sit inside that vault, completely untouched, for an entire weekend? And the answer was just brilliantly simple. On a Friday afternoon, right when a huge shipment of foreign currency arrives, our guy Louis Werner just misplaced the paperwork. That tiny delay meant the armored truck couldn't make the pickup before the banks closed for the weekend. And just like that, the money was stuck there until Monday morning, creating the perfect window of opportunity.
So, with all that cash just sitting there like a ticking time bomb, Jimmy Burke gave the green light. The crew had exactly one shot: get in, get the money, and get out before the entire city was on the lookout.
And the execution was just flawless. 3 o'clock in the morning, right during the shift's meal break, the armed crew, led by Tommy DeSimone, storms the building. They knew exactly where everyone would be: the cafeteria. They rounded up the terrified staff, then they grabbed the supervisor and forced him to open the vault, walking him through the complex steps they already knew by heart. In just a little over an hour, they loaded up a van and just vanished into the night. When they finally got a chance to count the haul, it was more than they ever could have imagined.
They were thinking best case, maybe 2 million. They walked away with nearly 6 million. It was the score of a lifetime. The celebration, though, that was tragically short.
Because almost right away, things started to go sideways. Jimmy Burke, the mastermind, just became consumed by paranoia. In his world, a world built on violence and mistrust, a score this big isn't something that brings you together. It's a liability. He knew the FBI would be relentless, so he decided the only way to cover his tracks was to get rid of every single loose end.
So the first domino to fall was the getaway driver, a guy they called Stax Edwards. His only job was to take the van to a junkyard and make sure it was destroyed. Instead, what does he do? He gets high, drives to his girlfriend's place, and just leaves the van in a no-parking zone. 2 days later, of course the cops find it. It was the FBI's first big lead, and it was a death sentence for Stax. And from there, the bodies just started piling up fast. Weeks after the heist, Stax Edwards was found shot to death. Then, Tommy DeSimone just disappeared. Turns out he was murdered by another crime family for an old hit he wasn't supposed to do. And through 1979, Jimmy Burke basically went on a killing spree, systematically murdering his own guys one by one to keep their cut of the money and to silence them forever.
I mean, just look at this breakdown. Of the main crew involved in the heist, almost every single one of them ended up dead within a year. The biggest score in American history had one of the absolute lowest survival rates. That money wasn't a blessing, it was a curse. So, after all that bloodshed, who's even left standing? Well, only 2 key players from our original trio: Jimmy Burke, the paranoid leader, busy killing everyone, and Henry Hill, the hustler who sat the whole thing out. So what happened to them? Well, Henry Hill, absolutely terrified that he was next on Jimmy's hit list, especially after he got arrested on his own drug charges, made a decision that brought the whole empire crashing down. He broke the Mafia's sacred code of silence and became an FBI informant. His testimony sent Jimmy Burke to prison for life, where he later died of cancer. And the money, that $30 million, it was never seen again. Just gone. When all the dust finally settled, that legendary heist hadn't created a single millionaire. The fortune vanished, the crew was completely wiped out, and the biggest score in history became the ultimate cautionary tale of greed and paranoia.
You know, it all really comes down to this one powerful idea. The only thing more dangerous than robbing the Mafia is robbing with them. The crew thought their biggest enemy was the FBI, but in reality, it was the man standing right next to them. It just proves that the biggest threat isn't always the law. Sometimes it's the paranoia you create all by yourself.